My family had owned this farm for nearly 80 years, and every fence line was carefully marked. One quiet morning, I heard the sound of heavy diesel engines coming from the eastern pasture. What I saw next made me stop in disbelief. .3 cement mixer trucks rolled directly across my planted field, crushing young crops beneath their tires. Workers ignored the marked farm road and continued deeper onto private land. I immediately drove over to find out what was happening. The site supervisor handed me a clipboard and claimed the HOA had authorized the shortcut. I calmly explained that this farm had never been part of their neighborhood. He seemed surprised to hear that a few minutes later, the HOA president arrived in a luxury SUV and insisted her construction project had the right to cross my property. I asked her to show me a recorded easement or a written agreement. She couldn't produce either one. That I pointed toward the clearly posted private property signs and recorded survey markers along the fence. Every boundary had been professionally surveyed years earlier. There was no confusion about where my land began. Instead of turning around, the convoy drove even farther across the soft pasture after recent rainfall. Their heavy trucks quickly began sinking into the muddy ground. The driver suddenly realized this wasn't a construction road. I called the county survey office and requested an official boundary verification. While we waited, I asked the drivers to stop moving the trucks to prevent further damage. Everyone agreed to pause the work. County surveyors arrived with GPS equipment and carefully located every property marker. Their measurements confirmed that the trucks were entirely on my privately owned farmland. The evidence was the survey supervisor explained the findings to everyone on site. Even construction foremen admitted they had relied only on verbal instructions. The HOA president grew noticeably quieter. With the property lines confirmed, I closed my ranch gate and directed all future traffic back to the public access road. The convoy would have to wait until the situation was resolved through the proper channels. The following morning, the HOA president returned with several contractors, expecting the trucks to continue the shortcut. Instead, they found the ranch entrance secured and the damaged pasture clearly marked off. No heavy equipment could legally cross my land anymore. I had hired a licensed excavation company to restore the damaged drainage channel that crossed my pasture. Bright safety fencing and warning signs surrounded the work area. The project protected both the land and everyone on site. County officials inspected the excavation plans and confirmed the drainage work complied with local requirements. They thanked everyone for keeping the work zone clearly marked and safe. The contractors paused while the inspection was completed. The HOA president insisted the trucks should still be allowed through. The county surveyor calmly pointed to the official property markers and explained that the route crossed privately owned farmland. The discussion ended almost immediately. The construction company reviewed its project maps and realized the approved public access road was only a few miles away. Although it was longer, it avoided private property entirely. The foreman ordered the drivers to change routes. Before leaving, I photographed every damaged section of the pasture and each deep tire track left behind. Accurate records would help calculate the restoration work. The documentation was thorough. Over the next week, contractors repaired the damaged pasture by improving drainage and restoring the soil. Fresh seed was planted, and protective fencing kept livestock away while the grass recovered. The farm slowly returned to normal. Several nearby farmers stopped to thank me for protecting the private farm road. They explained that heavy construction traffic had caused problems in neighboring fields before. Everyone appreciated the peaceful solution. The HOA board eventually acknowledged that relying on verbal instructions instead of recorded property maps had created the entire problem. They agreed future projects would require verified boundary reviews before construction began. Once the restoration work was complete, I reopened my ranch entrance for normal farm operations. The construction convoy continued using the approved public road without further issues. Respecting property boundaries solved everything. A month later, the repaired pasture was green again, and the cattle had returned to graze peacefully. Looking across the field, it was hard to believe how quickly the land had recovered. Careful restoration had made all the difference that I organized every survey, repair invoice, and photograph into a secure file. Good documentation protects both the landowner and the property itself. Preparation always pays off. The construction company updated its project planning process to verify access routes before sending heavy equipment. A few extra checks could prevent expensive mistakes. Everyone learned something valuable. County officials later used the situation as an example during a local landowner workshop. They emphasized the importance of property surveys and written agreements before construction projects begin. The message was well received. Standing beside the old fence line, I reflected on how important clear boundaries are in rural communities. Respect for private property helps neighbors avoid unnecessary conflicts. Good communication goes a long way. Neighbors often stop to admire how healthy the pasture looked after the restoration. The repaired drainage system handled every rainfall exactly as designed. The land was stronger than before. Looking back, I realized the disagreement had never been about construction. It had been about respecting ownership, verifying facts, and following the proper route. Those lessons benefited everyone involved as another season arrived. The farm was busy once again with cattle, equipment, and daily work. Everything felt peaceful, and the restored fields blended naturally into the landscape. Life returned to normal. Before sunset, I closed the ranch gate and looked across the quiet pasture one last time. The land had been protected, restored, and respected. That was all I had ever wanted. Driving home along the gravel road, I felt proud knowing the farm would remain protected for future generations. Respecting property rights and resolving disputes through proper channels had preserved both the land and good relationships. Some victories are measured